Good evening, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Guardians of the CLE podcast. I'm your host, Melanie Kirby, and I am back here with you this week, even though I don't look much less chaotic than I did last week. If you're watching on YouTube, you see a 5-month-old kitten trying to climb off my chest, courtesy of my fiance and my kids. So you just roll with the punches life gives you. And I got my co-host here with me, James Ellifritz, who did a great job of rolling with the punches that were thrown his way last week. I want to shout out and give Derek a big shout out for filling in for me last week, doing a great job. While I had some other things come up. So, James, how we doing tonight?
Hey, good, and welcome back. I didn't know the three of us were doing a podcast tonight with the kitten.
Yeah, this one's trying to get in the game a little too early.
Yeah. So yeah, if you're on YouTube, definitely check out this kitten. Wait a minute. Seems to be disappearing in your background, but
it's a magic cat.
Yeah. But no, yeah, thanks to Derek. Derek did a great job. Very first substitution as a host with the Guardians of the CLE podcast, but also it was his very first podcast. So I thought he did a great job, Derek. So, keep it up. And I know there's more in store for you coming up with Believe Land Media. So thanks for all your work.
Yeah. And, Derek did a much better job than the Guardians as a whole did last night, sadly, after a phenomenal homestand, which we're going to get into here in a minute, where the Bats finally showed that they have a pulse. Then they head out west. That first game out west, James, sometimes the energy can be a little off. The energy's a little low. The Bats just didn't travel last night. I expect to see much more from them tonight, but story of last night was just not Tanner Bybee's night, sadly. And I put it on Twitter last night. It just hurts my soul when I see him struggle, because I know he is him and I know his stuff plays at this level. And he's just got to trust his stuff. He only went 4 innings last night, gave up 6 runs on 8 hits, struck out 3, walked 2. And James, I don't know if you watched it or remembered it, but there was could have been strike 3 thrown to Juan Soto that was called a ball. That was after walking Fernando Tatis to lead off the game, and he just looked kind of visibly frustrated after that, just never really settled in. Gave up a 3-run bomb to Gary Sanchez later that inning, and give San Diego credit. They were able to tack on some runs after that big 4-0 lead. What'd you think about Tanner Bybee last night, James?
Yeah, he struggled. I would say, it's his first start back in his home state of California. So I don't know how many maybe friends, family were in attendance. So maybe that had a little something to do with it. Maybe he was a little more geared up based on being able to have his control and have his best stuff last night. But yeah, he's definitely going to be fine. But
for sure.
Yeah, I'm not really concerned about it. As far as Gary Sanchez hitting that home run, that felt like Jose Abreu over the weekend, comes to Cleveland to get right, because it reminded me of Josh Bell getting right in Washington, and Jose Abreu came back over the weekend to get right in Cleveland after he struggled so much. And, Sanchez.
No power.
Yeah, Sanchez completely struggled this year. How many teams has he been on? It's at least 2 this year. And
Mets signed him, let him go.
Yeah, and that's pretty much all he does too. So no harm, no foul. Yes, it would have been nice to have the victory last night, but that's part of having rookie pitchers up there. The consistency that they want to have, and they will get there. But it's just part of growing up and learning in the big leagues.
Yeah, and I tweeted it out last night too. Like, we forget sometimes, because these guys are so good and we follow them throughout the minors, but young players have growing pains. This is how they grow. And for me, it really seems like it's all mental at this point with Tanner Bybee. He's not trusting his stuff. He's only had his fastball command in, I want to say, 2 of his starts. His first start against Colorado, the Mother's Day start against the Angels, he was great. St. Louis, he started a little shaky, was fantastic after that. But if he's not trusting his stuff and he's nibbling with that heater, teams are going to sit off speed. And when he did throw off speed last night, it just caught too much of the plate. And that's going to get crushed at this level if you got guys sitting on your off speed stuff. So I think he's going to have this come to Jesus moment that we saw Tristan McKenzie have, where, wow, like I am that dude. My stuff plays at this level and I'm going to go out and I'm going to attack guys. And I think we're going to see that coming soon with Tanner Bybee. He doesn't need to go back to AAA. It was overreaction theater last night, and I get it. We're not used to seeing him struggle, but that's the pitching side. And I think we should note too, Xavier Curry, Eli Morgan, and
Yes.
Cody Morris in his season debut touching 97, which was phenomenal to see. But they locked it down. I mean, it was a 3-run game. They gave the offense a chance. It can't be understated what those guys have done. People want to say the bullpen sucks just because of their, timely collapses. But when you're playing all 1-run games, these guys are going to be gassed. Those are stressful outings. And we're seeing those top guys. They've all went through their struggles a little bit, but I'd argue Xavier Curry, Eli Morgan have been 2 of the more consistent guys in that pen. And Cody Morris, I think, is going to immediately slide right into a leverage spot in that bullpen. He looked great.
Yeah, it was good to see him out there. What his role is going to be going forward. It looks like long relief. But, I'm thinking that any of these guys, even if they were former starters and he's not going to be in the starting rotation, they better be ready because it's a long season, right? You have no idea when injuries are going to hit. So you always want to be ready. And I think our team and our coaching staff, I think they do a great job and make sure these guys are prepared to tackle any type of situation. So just nice to see him back out there.
Yeah, and just real quick, Josh Bell homered second straight game last night, added a single late. I think he's finally starting to heat up for good, which is going to help this lineup immensely. My rant of the day. So after watching last night, and I've been saying this for some time and I get a ton of hate from some people, but it creates some good dialogue. But I need Tito or somebody in that dugout to pay attention to stats. It's like Tito has zero idea how to use anybody with reverse platoon stats. We saw it with Miles Straw when he first came over from Houston, just assumed he could crush lefties. He didn't hit lefties well, never has. Owen Miller last year, never really been that lefty power masher. Last year, Tito thought he could be. It just couldn't be further from the truth. And we're seeing it now with Gabriel Arias. Throughout the entire minors, always had reverse platoon splits. Even early in his major league career, he's always hit righties better. Yet, Tito pinch hits him for Will Brennan in the 9th inning last night against Josh Hader, one of the toughest lefty closers in the game. Struck out on 3 pitches, honestly looked kind of ridiculous. But shout out Fran Mills' eyebrow for these split statistics I'm about to share with you. He's always been great with this. But against righties, his slash line, 288, 397, 500 OPS. Lefties, batting 106 with a 192 slug, 170 OPS. WRC plus against righties is a 153. It's a 2 against lefties. And again, striking out at only 25% of the time against righties, 44 against lefties. So it just seems like Tito's throwing these young Gabriel Arias and Tyler Freeman out there, like Tyler Freeman sitting for 2 weeks. Come on in, big inning, late in the game, extra innings against the Astros. He delivered, right? Tyler Freeman delivered,
Yep.
But the playing time has just been incredibly erratic. I'm not seeing too much sense behind it. And just when they are playing, it's just feeling to me like they're not being placed in the best positions to succeed, which is just frustrating because we all know what the logjam is.
Yeah.
It's all been solved.
But I mean, this is the time of year though I think we talked about earlier this season that April and May are your experimental months, I guess, if you will, as far as having people up, playing them in different positions. And then you would think by June, before All-Star break, that we solidify those positions a little bit more. So Mel, maybe we just need to be more patient because the amount of youth that's on this team and who knows, are they trying to showcase guys for potential trades at the deadline? that we
Yeah,
just don't see right now.
And like, to speak to that a little further, like Ahmed Rosario has zero approach at the plate right now. Like he's always swung at sliders in the other batter's box. That's always kind of been like his weakness. And I mean, obviously the book is out on that, but he's taking balls right down the middle of the plate now. So he's swinging in the other batter's box, but he's taking that off speed stuff, the slower stuff right down the middle of the plate. I mean, he's down to a 69 WRC plus on the year, which is 41 points below league average. And statistically, defensive runs saved, errors, all that. He's one of, if not the worst defensive shortstop in the league. I'm not going to second guess anything because honestly, I don't know what his trade value even would have been in the offseason. I mean, if we see all these things about him, I'm sure other teams do too. Like, I hate when fans think you can just kind of like dump the guy you don't want and get like Jordan Walker from the Cardinals or Colton Cowser from the Orioles. Like, you're not trading your junk for another team's treasure, right? Like, you got to give something up to get the good return. So I think we're just kind of stuck with it. Maybe they'll platoon him. I mean, Ahmed sucks against righties. He's pretty good against lefties. Maybe you platoon them. Maybe you platoon Ahmed and Gabriel Arias. Play them each to their strength. Just kind of see what happens. Try something different, you know, James?
Yeah, I think Jordan Walker's name needs to just disappear for the year because the Cardinals are one of the most disappointing teams of the season. They're only above. They're the only two teams below them, I believe, are the A's and the Royals. So that's a huge disappointment for that, especially Adam Wainwright in his last season as a starting pitcher. I don't know if anybody's really watched him. I watched him on Sunday Night Baseball. He's been a great, ambassador for the game as a player for a long time, and I just don't see. I mean, why would they trade Jordan Walker to us or anybody? If anything, they're going to have a fire sale with their vets.
Yeah, they're not taking. I don't see them as a logical fit. If they're not going to pick it up and get back in the race, but what need would they have for a guy like Bieber who's only going to have 1.5 years of team control? That's not going to fit their window if they're selling off this year. And they don't look like they're catching fire anytime soon. So I was kind of waiting to see if they'd get hot here in June, and I'm just not seeing it. I mean, they look lifeless, even at home. But a team who didn't look lifeless at home was the Cleveland Guardians over this last 6-game homestand. They won their second series in a row after they split that series in Minneapolis against the Twins. Just capped off a tremendous 6-game homestand against Boston and Houston. The offense was just cooking on this homestand. The Cleveland Guardians official team account posted their stats where they rank in the majors offensively during this 6-game stretch. They're first in average at 317. First in hits was 70. They had double-digit hits in 6 straight games for the first time in 5 years. They were first in extra base hits with 29. Second in runs with 38. I mean, James, they were cooking on all cylinders over this weekend. So how did you feel after this last homestand? Are you kind of having this conflict? Like, who is this team for real? We saw like the worst they could possibly play. Now we finally just saw probably some of the best baseball they could play with this current group.
How do I feel? I feel great because we've been waiting for that, regardless of who they were playing. But to me, it meant that much more because we were playing the defending world champions. I talked in the offseason about, last season, a lot of the wins that we didn't beat a lot of winning teams for a lot of our victories. So to beat a team that, most likely is going to be in the playoffs again this year, even after losing Verlander. Now I know Jose Altuve was out Sunday's game, get him out of the order. That's a treat to have for us, but still just to beat that world championship team 2 out of 3, it's got to make you feel great. It gives you some confidence, and they needed that bad.
Yeah, it was big for them to have a big homestand, especially knowing you got to head out west after this. But coincidentally, it also led to a spike in attendance. Like, imagine that. Fans love some offense. The 155,580 during the homestand was the highest 6-game stretch since 2018. But the name changed, James. But Pride Night. Nobody's ever going to go support this team with a silly name like the Guardians. I mean, people are showing. This team shows up. They have offense. The kids are playing well. They're going to come out and they're going to support this team. So that had to give these kids a boost. Like, man, like, this is motivating us to play good. Like, we finally have a home field advantage, it feels like.
Right.
But the biggest part, they closed that gap in the division to 1.5 games. It's since moved up to 3. With our loss last night, and the Twins already won today. But again, the goal just can't be to win the division. We know we are in the worst division in baseball. Any other division in baseball, and we're looking at a pretty large deficit right now, James. And I say this for 2 reasons. It allowed us to have that larger room for error in the first 2 months of the season when guys are still trying to figure it out. And they consistently played the worst baseball they possibly could. James, I honestly don't think that they'll play that poorly for that long for the entire rest of the season. So I kind of feel like they got that out of the way. And I just hope being so close within 2.5, 3 games of the Twins for first, I just pray it's not going to cause the front office to get complacent in July again, thinking, oh, we're right there. We could catch the Twins with this current group. No, go get better. Take this opportunity to go get some power, add some more slugging to your outfield. We know that's what this team needs. And I honestly think if you add a proven right fielder with some of this prospect capital you've built up, this isn't even talking about Shane Bieber. This is just clearing some of these log jams. I just think it's going to help you immensely in being able to go compete with the Rays, the Jays, the Rangers, the Astros, who we just took a series from. I just hope they don't use Minnesota as their measuring stick.
See, this is where you and I are going to disagree, because as far as winning the division, it's our only ticket to the playoffs.
Oh, you got to win the division, but
there's no other way. I mean, I even thought at the beginning of the season that the number 3 seed in the playoffs, that's the best you're going to get. I didn't expect us to go above the AL West or the AL East champ at all.
Look, we didn't get nowhere. Our offense stunk in the playoffs because it's hard to get 5 singles in the postseason against that good pitching. Go improve your offense.
However, that same team was enough to beat the team with the best record in baseball, Tampa. So we knocked them out of the playoffs. So it's really about how we're going to be playing going into the playoffs, because nobody's going to give a damn what our division record is or was once we hit the playoffs.
And the Rays got better, so they could go score more than 1 and 2 runs in a playoff.
Yeah, I mean, they're hitting the hell out of the ball. But there isn't a lot of...
I don't know what they got in those balls down in Tampa, but Jose Siri's crushing baseballs right now. Isaac Paredes is obliterating baseballs right now. Like, you expect it from guys like Yandy Diaz and Randy Arozarena and Wander Franco. But you got guys like Josh Lowe, Paredes, Siri, Bethancourt, guys you don't even really hear about, that's just mashing the ball. And it just makes you wonder, what is different in the organizational philosophy? Like, they just come up and they hit like it's nothing. It just looks so effortless.
It's just because they have a roof and we don't.
Yeah, I agree. Let's just keep it at that. The good old Trop down in Tampa.
The entire inside of the dome is a human. What's that called? The humanator, or the humanator? Yeah. They used to put the balls in to make them different. Cores. Yeah. So, I don't know. I mean, I still think, like I said, my mind is still in October that it's how we're playing going into the playoffs, and let's win the division. Is Oscar going to come up and take that right field spot again? Is Will Brennan going to just own that one, even because he's been hitting better?
We need Brennan in center.
Right.
We need Brennan in center. But that's my thing. I agree with you. We're not getting in the wild card. I agree with you 1,000,000%. You're not getting one of those wild card spots. You have to be able to win the Central. But I don't want to use the Twins are mid too. The Twins aren't that good. I don't want to use the Twins as my measuring stick. I want to compete with the best teams in the league, because just simply competing with the Minnesota Twins, like, is a pretty low bar. And I think after an ALDS appearance last year, you still got Jose in his prime, which he could fall off a cliff any year now. We just don't know. He's in his age 30 season. Once you hit 30, it could happen at any time. So I want to maximize all these years that we have left with one of the best hitters in the game of baseball. And that was on full display, James, in this series versus the Red Sox. I'm delivering pizzas for my second job. And I am just screaming, turning Hammy's calls of the game up. I couldn't believe what Jose did. They lost the series opener 5-4. They had a chance to win that too, but I'm not going to talk too much about that. Enel De Los Santos had his one rare bad outing, so I'm not going to spend too much time there. But James, that bounce back game in game 2, it's another one. Bybee struggled early with his command, but he gave his team a chance to win. He went out and gave you 5 innings. You had Josh Bell contributing an RBI single. Josh Naylor makes an awful error in the top of that 4th inning, which allowed a run to score. But he immediately came back, RBI single in the bottom half of the inning. You had Ahmed and Jose adding RBI doubles. And Clase had a fairly smooth 2-strikeout 9th for his league-leading 20th save. What did you think about the bounce back of this team, James? Like, I know this is right before the Jose game that I was kind of hyping up, but the bounce back I saw, like the fight I saw from this team was almost like something I haven't seen all year. Like they just didn't quit. They didn't care if they got down early.
Well, I mean, the hard part about the struggles at the beginning of the season leading into May too, is that it seemed like everybody was struggling. There wasn't one guy, 2 guys that were really seemed like they were carrying the team. And it made it so difficult to look to your teammate to pick you up and be like, yeah, man, this guy's got it. He's doing well. We appreciate what you're doing, because they were all struggling. But now once you got a few guys going, it became contagious.
Absolutely.
And that's what this team does. They need each other in that lineup with the lack of power more than most major league teams need.
Agreed.
So
yeah, like they need their steady guys, the Jose Ramirez, the Josh Naylor. You know, Andres Jimenez is even starting to pick it up. We mentioned Josh Bell. You know, we're starting to see some of that slugging that we know he's capable of. Will Brennan's getting those everyday at bats now. He's spraying the ball all over the yard. If they could get Stephen Kwan and Ahmed going at the top too, I mean, this could turn around to be a top 10 offense in the game. And really, that's all we needed to be. Top 15 with the pitching that we have. And I'm feeling pretty good. So it's like, like you said, it's contagious. As some of these guys start to get going, we see other guys are starting to pick up on it. I think, what's Josh Naylor at now? He's got a 10 or 12 game hit streak right now, I believe. And then, you know, obviously the series finale against the Red Sox, Jose Ramirez left no doubt that this team was going to get a series win. He picked up the entire team. He put them all on his little back, and he left Progressive Field that night knowing his team won a series. Man, and before we get into Jose, I just want to give a shout out to Aaron Savali. I think people, because there's no denying, dude has injury history, durability is a concern. But I think people forget what kind of pitcher he really is when he is fully healthy. I've said it before, look back to 2021 pre-injury. We were talking all-star starters, Cy Young. That's the kind of stuff he has. He went out again, gave you 5 2/3 innings, 2 runs, 4 hits, 3 strikeouts, and 2 walks. And I'd put him ahead of most fifth starters in the league, James.
yeah, but I'll never talk Cy Young. I mean, he's a 5 to 6 inning pitcher.
But 2021 was different. If you look at his stats before then, he was leading the league in wins. He was one of the best pitchers in the American League before he went down with that finger injury.
It's
I'm not
so
saying
hard.
he's back to that level.
No.
At all.
But what I'm saying, like, I want to get into like we're talking about Josh Naylor, but we can talk about Savali too. What I don't like going into all-star voting is that a player, all they have to do, guest appearance. Welcome to the show.
We have 4 hosts today.
Yes. So yeah, if you're watching on YouTube, you'll see that. Check us out on YouTube, please.
Always count on me for some random
Believe
chaos.
Land Media channel. Subscribe today.
All the cat fans. Shout out all the cat fans out there.
Yes.
Like the cat people.
But no, I was talking about the All-Star break, and I don't understand. Every year I get it. You know, they have players represent, well, at least one representative for each team. And that's went back to since I was a kid. And as a kid, I can remember that when you would watch an All-Star game and you'd finally see one player, I'm talking pre-90s, Mel. So it was whatever one you got, you were thankful that they even just made the team. But there's so many players that will have a few good months to start the season. Next thing you know, they're an all-star. But yeah, they've had a great start to the season, but how do they back it up?
Right.
And that's kind of how I feel with Savali when before some of these injuries, like he was pretty good, but I just, like you said 5th starter, and that's where I'm at with him as well.
Well, they followed that up with another series win against the Houston Astros, 14-inning historic affair on Friday night. They were the first team in Major League history to tie a game. What was it? Was it 4 times, 5 times?
It was a lot, and it was awesome.
End up winning the game. Yeah. Will Brennan came through. Kill Will came through again. Another timely hit. And they took care of business the next 2 days, which is massive. But a topic I want to make sure we touch on, James, before we get out of here. I know it's the elephant in the room. I know we just had a cat in the room, but I'm going to address the elephant in the room.
Nice segue.
For some reason, this organization thought it would be a good idea to send out assistant general manager and former director of player development, James Harris, to kind of take the shots from reporters on why the hell Bo Naylor is not up here. This was after watching Mike Zunino allow 6 stolen bases to the Houston Astros. His chance of "we want Bo" erupted at his home ballpark. And what was confusing, I think, like, one thing I've learned about Chris Antonetti is he is an absolute pro at saying so much while saying absolutely nothing. And I think that's an important skill for any general manager who has to deal with the media to have. But this guy was just kind of like, I don't know if it was scripted or if he just kind of like went rogue, but he stated he's made all the strides offensively that they wanted him to make. He even went as far as saying his defense has improved. The only thing left for Bo Naylor to do is learn how to lead a clubhouse at the major league level. Why the hell is he in AAA Columbus trying to learn how to lead the major league clubhouse? Clearly, he knows how to lead the AAA clubhouse. He's got Daniel Schneemann and Reynel Delgado and Chris Roller and Hunter Gaddis and Gavin Williams even. He can lead those guys. I want to see if he can just not be the worst catcher in the league.
He's not going to be. This is the part where a lot of people on Twitter just don't understand that it's not just all about baseball. It's about business too.
Well, yeah, it's the Super 2 bullshit, which obviously they're not going to say. Like, oh, we just want to make sure that we don't owe him an extra year of arbitration. You know, we want, and they already got that extra year of team control due to his 5 or 6 days of service time he accrued last year. But it's kind of just frustrating. And it's so annoying when then you get the Columbus Clippers, like you see his home runs and they show every single one of his doubles. You even had the Bally Sports account, like, oh, the Naylor brothers are both in the middle of long hitting streaks right now. And it's like, what are we doing? Like, his older brother's on the team, and I know it's just fans talking, and this isn't the organization giving a shit that Ahmed's in the 2-hole because he's Jose's best friends. That's not how baseball works. But it's like you do have Josh Naylor on this team and you want to extend him. I'm sure he'd love the opportunity to play with little bro. You don't get an opportunity to do that every day.
I mean, yeah, trust me, I'm like everybody else. I want to see his bat up in our lineup.
There it is.
I mean, I want it. That's easy. That I want. Hell, I wanted that. I said that in the offseason when we had Todd Paquette on. It's like I'd love to have Bo come up and be our rookie of the year.
Yeah. And they weren't super aggressive for Sean Murphy. So that tells me they are confident in him. They do believe he could be their catcher of the future for the next decade, maybe even. You know, because they set a firm boundary. We're not giving up more than this for Sean Murphy. If they weren't confident in Bo Naylor, they probably would have budged a little bit more to make sure that they had a stable catcher who knew how to play defense. But I think part of it too is they don't want to admit that the Mike Zunino signing was this bad. But anybody who follows me on Twitter, anybody who listens to this show knows I hated that signing. I hated it from the minute Chuck and Quincy were tossing it all around Twitter, manifesting that right after the Sean Murphy news broke, and I just could not buy into it. Thoracic outlet syndrome is no joke, and Mike Zunino is an outstanding human being. And at this point, I almost just like want to save him from himself because James, I honestly, and I'm not even trying to be funny, I don't think he can actually make a competitive throw to second base anymore. Yeah. And that's not that surgery is intense and he may not be the same after that. But he threw the ball off the side of the mound in Yankee Stadium and I've not forgotten that since. And now he's sailing him into center field because he's trying to get rid of it as fast as he can. I mean, it's a lose-lose.
We've all seen Major League. He's Jake Taylor right now.
Yeah.
Just struggling. And why Bo can't at least be our number 2, other than that they want to keep him playing every day. That's the only thing I see. We desperately need his offense. I'm looking forward to him coming up too, but there's got to be some good other reason to have him down. But we did talk about Columbus. In Columbus, he should have his his numbers should be a little bit higher because it's a hitter's park. But still, he's the one he hit the other night I was on the road. So the guy's ready to hit. He's ready to be in the major leagues, I think. Can he be our full-time starting catcher and catch all this great pitching staff that we have?
He's caught most of them. He's caught Bybee down there. He's caught LTA down there.
Right.
Tristan, he's caught down there in his rehab starts. Savali, he caught down there in his rehab starts. It's really only Bieber, I think.
Yeah.
Who he hasn't caught yet, which is interesting because I do agree with you. That matters. You want to have that cohesiveness between your catcher and your pitcher. You want him active in all those meetings, deep diving into all the stats when they're preparing, how they're going to call a game. That stuff does matter, and it does make the catching position a little tricky. But don't come out here and give us this bullshit that, we already have 3 catchers on our major league roster. No, you really don't. These guys are placeholders. You know exactly what you need to do if you want Bo Naylor up here tomorrow.
Yeah, and the one thing that the coaching staff love about Gallagher is how he handles the pitching staff.
Yeah, he's great defensively.
And we just talked about the Cardinals. You asked the Cardinals how bad they missed Molina since he's retired. So I bet that has a lot to do with it. Losing his leadership. He probably didn't. I couldn't even tell you what his. I can't even tell you what his stats were last year. But the importance of a catcher being able to call a game is very overlooked, I think, in most fans.
And before we get out of here tonight, speaking of a Naylor, All-Star voting is underway. As I mentioned on my Twitter, at Mello_NIE91, I 100% believe Josh Naylor deserves to be our All-Star representative in Seattle. The only problem is apparently Cleveland fans don't like voting. He's 10th among first basemen right now with 34,701 votes, which is just embarrassing. He's behind guys like Joey Gallo, who was just on the IL. Jose Abreu, who we talked about earlier, hasn't had any power till he came to Progressive Field. And Jared Walsh of the Angels, who's hitting like 1-something. Obviously, Vladdy's leading the way with 545,976. Jose is 9th among third basemen, and Andres Jimenez is 10th among second basemen. So just make sure you log on and vote. I mean, Naylor in his last 28 games is batting .395 with a 1.008 OPS, a .579 slug, 8 doubles, 2 homers, and 22 RBIs. I mean, on the year, he's almost up to an 800 OPS after being in the 4s for the month of April. Like, this dude has turned on the Jets. Go out and vote. And we want to thank everybody for listening here again tonight. Make sure you head on over to BelieveLandMediaLLC.com. We got you covered with podcasts and written content for all our professional sports teams, Buckeyes, and high school sports. Make sure you head on over to our Twitter page at GuardiansOTCLE so you can stay up to date on all the latest guest news and anything related to the podcast. James, you got anything before we head out?
We didn't bring up James Karinchak, not on the roster.
Yeah,
So we can talk about that next week.
Before we head out of here tonight, just a reminder, make sure you're buying your tickets to the Akron Rubber Ducks game, the Guardians AA affiliate. It's on July 19th. James and I have the pleasure and the honor of throwing out the first pitch. I promise we won't fall off the freaking side of the mountain for attention, like some people out there. I'm actually in my backyard practicing currently. So if you head on over to that game, make sure you stop by, say hello to us. We'd love to catch up with some other fans. So until next week's episode, let's hope we're talking about a winning West Coast trip before heading back home. And I better be sharing the Bo Naylor call-up news next Wednesday when we talk again. In the meantime, everybody stay safe, stay healthy, and go Guardians.
Go Guards.